Hey everyone, Brett Tremblay here, back with another episode of Between Two Friends. And today it is my distinct honor and privilege to have an old friend of mine from our small little hometown back in New Mexico. We quasi grew up together, had some classes together in high school, and reconnected within the past few years. And I'm excited to have Colin Schwartz on today because he, from my perspective at least, and we're going to ask him more today, really just like reinvented himself, decided to go in a different direction, and is absolutely crushing it. Colin, dude, it's really great to see you again. And, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, Brett, the honor is honestly all mine. We grew up together, as you mentioned. I always looked up to you. You were the upperclassman. You always provided solid advice. So once again, really appreciate this and just kind of the opportunity. So you are correct. I did find kind of a point of reinvention, but just a little background about myself. We grew up in New Mexico, went to business school, didn't really know much about business after going to business school. Moved to Nebraska, started, kind of moving around a bunch of different jobs, started managing a grocery chain, then finished my master's degree and thought I was going to find the dream job of a 9 to 5 sitting behind a desk of being an analyst. You know, it, Quickly enough, I realized that wasn't right. However, I started getting constricted by the golden handcuffs, kept getting promoted, kept getting promoted, kept getting promoted, but really didn't see my life changing. The promotions didn't create, I guess, additional happiness. And, it came in 2017, January 1st, and this is kind of how it is full circle talking with you. You had wrote a post on Facebook about the books that you read, and one of the top ones was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I had never read it, had heard about it, read the book, and within 24 hours, my mindset completely changed. My thought was then on creating multiple streams of income, becoming a business owner or investor. Started investing into real estate within a few months after that. I said, hey, if this is the time, this is the time. I'm going to kind of start burning the bridges. I had a full-time job, a second child on the way, and realized that I did not want to spend the next 33 years of my life working for somebody else, counting down to when my 401k said I could retire, or when I guess the status quo said that. So, bought a threeplex, quickly started scaling up in real estate, created a property management company. Now we've created a brokerage, an investment, real estate investment company in which we syndicate apartment complexes, anywhere from $2 to $10 million. Currently, we have a little over 1,000 rental units under our management. 500 we directly manage, the other 500, which honestly is probably closer to additional 700, we do the asset management for. We started a lending company. I came to a fork in the road and it was either left or right. And, the blue pill or the red pill. And, I took the pill that brought me on this route and honestly couldn't be happier. So it's been a wild 4 years, but just
That,
incredibly glad I did so.
dude, that's one of the best, like, 3 minute, here's what I do in my life and here's where I am now, speeches that I've ever heard. I mean, that is to only be 4 years in and to have accomplished what you guys have accomplished. That is incredible execution. It is burning your boats and going for it. Even though I haven't asked you that many questions, I just know I can tell that. But it started with the decision, and I think for a lot of people, a I don't know, a lot of people that we know, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. There's a lot of ups and downs, good days, bad days. There's a chart which shows, like, the day in the life of an entrepreneur. And it's like highs and lows all within 8 hours. And but 8 hours to us doesn't exist. We're always on, and we're always working. And it can be very fulfilling, but it can also bring a lot of stress and anxiety. So I want to make that clear. But I've talked to some other friends who have, like, done it and then caught that fire, and you clearly caught that fire. And I'll just tell you, from my perspective, it is so much fun to see someone go from working for someone else to doing something on their own and just absolutely loving it and being successful, not because of the money part of it, which I'm sure is better now, but because of the freedom, because of, like, the energy that when I hear you tell your story and you talk about golden handcuffs and being in the rat race. But now, like, you could do anything you want. 5 years from now, You could be on a totally different path, or you could be on the same. You could have doubled, tripled, quadrupled your company, but the choice is yours, and you have that freedom because of the decision that you made early in January 2017. I love it, man. Congratulations.
I appreciate that, and you are correct. There's a lot of highs and lows. I think every day is like that. But that's what makes it interesting because you're actually moving the needle and not to go back to the corporate life, but it's just a linear path. You choose to go up a little bit, you stay straight, but it's basically linear. With this, it really is your choice. You can go climb that mountain, you could dive to the deepest ocean, you could do it that day. You can do it that day and you can make those decisions.
You could be on the hamster wheel thinking you're executing something, but it's a terrible idea, right? So, I'm a huge fan of Think and Grow Rich, and having the dedicated time to think through things properly, I think is important. But execution is really what separates, the top 1% from the top five from the top 20. So tell us how in just over 4 short years, you've been able to get, I think, over 1,000 doors under management.
You have to realize that you may have a certain set of skills that can bring you so far, but almost always you're going to be missing another set of skills. And even if you do have those skills, you're not going to have that time to accomplish those. I found some great partners. I found a great network of people. I have fantastic, fantastic people that work for me. And that is really what it's created. We are a very scrappy, professional, customer centric company. We focus on customer service above all things. And I think the pandemic really what was the time that you saw some companies either wither into a ball or then explode and grow. When we saw some issues coming, we sat together as a team and said, okay, this is an opportunity for us. This is an opportunity to show our customers. This is an opportunity to show our investors that we can make it through this and that we're going to come out better. So we created a plan and we executed on that. And I think that's what we've done all along. I've always looked for what other people don't want to do and what people think are difficult, because that's where the opportunity is. The difficult work is what really helps you move forward. So we've always looked at, I mean, solving problems. The apartments we buy, they are undervalued assets. They are mismanaged. They are, in good areas, but they are the eyesore typically. Now we're purchasing some better, newer assets that are built, within the last decade. But our early business model was that value add and going in and doing the heavy lift, doing the hard work, and working on complexity that others shied away from or that we were told we were crazy for doing.
You said scrappy and professional. And I think that's important to know. You can be both at the same time. The other thing I'm wondering is, do you have any idea off the top of your head, or maybe just close or ballpark, how many jobs you've created because you took the leap in 2017?
That's a really good question. I think one point at one time last year, we maybe had 50 remodels going, plus our team, plus other property management companies that I hire. I mean, it could be 50, 60 jobs. I mean, our law groups are having to hire more attorneys. Our accounting firms are having to hire more accountants to take care of us. So those are kind of just the tertiary effects. I mean, locally we have 9 employees and multiple contractors that we work with, regularly. Plus our property management companies have had to scale because of that. And outside of that, with our lending company, we're lending money. Now these individuals are able to flip, rehab, sell homes that they're now hiring contractors. It's, I would guess 50, 60, maybe more. It's amazing. And that's the greatest part about being an entrepreneur. And that is also the stressful part is that your success, you need success because that is providing success for the individuals around you. And that's what keeps us up at night, but that's what also drives us.
Absolutely. And like for me, the people I'm around that are working with me and for me, et cetera, they've been able to do better and more, and then, eventually get into businesses and do the same thing, kind of rinse and repeat. It's important that we pay it forward to those closest to us. But one of the things I really like about what you said too is you have to have a good team. And one of the biggest hurdles that I see entrepreneurs go through is they have a good idea, right? So they want to go into business, but they try to do everything themselves. And I'm a huge delegation fan. Delegation doesn't mean make someone do something. It means give someone an opportunity. And you said you have to realize that there are things you're not good at. So you got to partner with people on one level, but then also delegate on another level in order to focus on just the things that you're really skillful at or that you want to learn how to do.
It's one of those things, and I just recently read the book Who Not How, which I highly recommend, which is all about, parsing off and delegating the jobs that you aren't good at. It's not that a job is beneath you, it's just you are more proficient at other items, and you see an opportunity for somebody else that can certainly excel in another area. You bring them in to fill in that void so you can continue to focus on what you're best at. When you start, you are doing 60 different jobs. It's just impossible unless you have a large bankroll and you're able to start with a big company. At the beginning, I was doing leasing, running around 100% of property management. I was spraying for bugs. I was also working my full-time job as well as being a dad. I was up answering all tenants' phone calls. I was doing all of that. Now I have a team that takes care of that, and they're great people in those great positions. So I can focus on what I've become good at is building the business, creating networks, and focusing on the large plan of what our company will be.
Yeah. When people ask me for advice, I tell them, look, you're gonna have to, and I like that you said 60 because so many people say I was wearing like two or three hats. No, no, no. Like it is 60 at least. The bigger that my companies get, the more I'm like, when is everybody gonna wear one hat? But the point you made is that when you start on your own, it's you, and you're gonna have to hustle. But I tell people to hustle just enough to where they can make that first hire and start getting things off their plate. So if somebody costs you, let's just say $1,000 a month, you just need to get to $1,000 a month as fast as possible and then hire someone because now you're going to get to 5,000 10 times faster by delegating and using that money to help with resources than if you try to get to 5,000 by yourself.
We're so trained at looking like a yearly salary. So when they're hiring somebody for a test, well, I can't afford to pay somebody $50,000 a year because I don't have $50,000. That is not the right way to look at it. You have a runway. Your business is going to grow throughout that year. So that $50,000 is going to change. But what you said is look at it from a monthly rate. Okay, this is what I need to get to because as an entrepreneur, over a year, you can build literally exponentially. So you really do have to look at it. I mean, I'm sure you guys do look at it, whether it's, every 3 weeks, quarterly, and just kind of seeing that growth. And that's how you factor it in. And getting out of that mindset of it's a cost. No, it's not a cost. It's a business and it's an investment. It's an investment for you to gain time back. It's also an investment for your company to grow and be better.
What is your advice for somebody who wants to get into the real estate game? Because everyone just hears multifamily units and all these things. And if I have $100,000, well, if you're investing with friends, it's different. You're never going to really make the return, but you just went for it, started from scratch. So I'm not in the business, so you tell anyone who's still listening, what are the first moves you make? I mean, you mentioned spraying for bugs yourself and taking on projects that nobody else wanted. That must be what it took for you. So, maybe spend some time getting into the actual, real estate side of it. How does somebody go about other than going all in? What are the moves to make early on?
Yeah, great question. So I get asked it a lot, and the primary thing that I did at the beginning was first off, I was insanely focused. So I had a focus, and I knew that's what I wanted, and I wasn't going to let anybody stand in the way. I educated. I was spending 6 hours a day. So while I was at my desk, I was listening to podcasts. I was constantly reading. And then the next most important thing, that there's a term called analysis paralysis. You learn it all, but you don't react.
Yeah.
Start doing everything these books recommend. Start doing all these different items. Apply your education and know that you are going to fail 99% of the time at the beginning and even throughout. In our business, we say you make 100 offers, you may get one deal. This could take a year. This could take 6 months. This could take a long time. So just know that when you're applying everything, that you're going to strike out. Many people are going to tell you no. Many people are going to tell you you're crazy. But an actual thing to do after the education is understand your finances. Immediately, I started talking to lenders because knowing what you can purchase is going to be incredibly valuable. Understand that because if you don't have any money, you know that one of the hurdles is you're going to have to be able to find capital. So understand your money side, then start networking. Ask the question, and literally, this is the question I ask my wife as I was pacing around in circles 2 weeks after I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and said, how am I going to do this? Who is the smartest person you know that can maybe introduce me to somebody else? That person was 4 people removed from my now today business partner.
Wow.
And I got on a phone call. He had 60 or 70 rentals. He was in property management. He had everything that I was dreaming of being an actual newbie. And he spent so many hours with me. But the thing is I provided value to him. He was looking for projects. I had some capital from a home equity line of credit. I cashed out my 401k. I really burned all the bridges, all the boats. And so I was providing value to him, and I think he could see that. So those are the most important things. You get started with that and the education, understanding your finances, and then finding whether it's a mentor or somebody in your network that you look up to and you can provide value with. That will exponentially change everything.
The old adage, it's not what you know, but it's who you know. But yet people still focus on trying to learn the what. Like, I'm going to go to school. Who you know by networking, by providing value, by reaching out to people who then know other people, who then know other people. And you can't ask just selfishly, like you said. You said, Colin, like, I added value, because getting a cold call like, hey, I want a bunch of information, I have nothing to add to you, that's not how you get a mentor or partners. But working the network is what will take you where you want to go in life. And the people that know how to do that, that's those are the people that ultimately are successful. So you got to put your ego aside, and you got to go for it personally, and then not be afraid to let other people know you've gone for it, because people like to be around that kind of excitement and energy too. Is there anything you want to leave us with? What one thing that maybe now you tell other guys that reach out to you and ask you how you've done what you've done so far?
You have to think of it as we versus me. I think the people that fail are trying to nickel and dime and take everything for themselves because they run from a scarcity mindset. I know, and it's hard to get away from that. There's sometimes you're like, well, I want to take all of this, or I need this, I need this money, I need that. The abundance mentality wins every time.
Like, who you surround yourself is so important, not only because people are there to discourage you or kick you while you're down, or flat out don't want you to succeed, because that will make them feel bad about themselves. And that's where people get into the don't be honest with themselves conversations, because when someone else is successful and you're not, if you have the wrong mentality, then it makes you feel bad about what you haven't done. And so it's important to, for people who are being successful, to spread that abundance mentality, so that you can get through to those people that are kind of stuck in well, it's either me or them, and I can't do it because they, or if only I did what they did. I used to hear that a lot. If only I did X, Y, and Z. And even when I first started my law career, I had some of those thoughts seep in. If only I had this type of firm, maybe I could grow it. So but anyway, Colin, dude, I really, really am just proud of you. I'm so excited for your success, which is mind blowing, by the way. I mean, you didn't just get in and do okay. You have done amazing things, and I know there's only more to come. And so I hope to stay in touch. And thanks again for joining us on Between Two Friends.
Yeah, I appreciate it so much, Brett. Thank you.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, thanks, buddy.